Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today we have Kurt with us, and this guy has done some amazing things. And one of the things that he does is really close to my heart. He loves to help people with disabilities. As you know, I prefer to say different abilities because I know that we are able to do so much more than a lot of us even know. And we're all remarkable people. So, Kurt, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I like to share that being in Wisconsin, I'm an ambassador to bring you the show ski capital of the world. So we're talking water skiing. I'm a lifelong water skier. Mother and my two aunts performed water ski shows since before I was born until I was, I think it was about like when I was 6 years old was probably when they wrapped it up. But then by the time I was 14 years old, I was watching my brother in a ski show. And when I was 15, I joined the ski show that I belong to now. And so I'm a guy that loves marketing through technology and events. So right now I'm out there a lot in the online entrepreneurial space, learning all about tools that entrepreneurs use, connecting the coaches, and I do podcasting myself as well, and I'm involved in TV and radio, and all of that kind of came together. First of all, because I kind of have a flair for it all, but then the bonus benefit is that with what I picked up on with being a disability ally, people with disabilities taught me that, hey, Kurt, you can be a disability ally. So they sold me on it. So here I am saying that's what I am. And so basically all the mass media, multimedia, social media, all the stuff allows me to share the last decade of experiences that I've had with who I say are masters of ability, where some
I
people
love
call
that.
them, as you said, people with disabilities.
I love that. That's so cool. And what got you involved in helping people with disabilities?
Well, it's something to explain. It's like peeling an onion. It's a progression of things, and then it culminated to a point like I alluded to 10 years ago. But kind of the foundation of it is I was born into a family where my parents and grandparents and other relatives and close friends are in Lions International, where we know that they support people who are blind or visually impaired. And also, I'm in the Catholic faith community. And so, same situation with Knights of Columbus and Ladies of Columbus, where, at the present time, we would show Knights of Columbus supporting people with intellectual disabilities. So I know that now to be in the space of intellectual and developmental disabilities. And when I was in high school, I learned about through a scholarship opportunity, Optimus International. And then subsequent to that, when I learned more about it post high school and post college, actually, after I got married, when I looked at what's going on in Optimus International, I learned that they picked up a program, created a program for more scholarship opportunities for students, being a communications contest for the deaf and hard of hearing. So all these experiences culminating in the community of people with physical disabilities is the water skiing. The water ski club that I belong to, they picked up adaptive water skiing, a few years into the club. So at this point, it would be 37 years of adaptive water skiing by the club I belong to. And what happened a decade ago is I I ended up with um, a circumstance where I was able to talk to someone who's a community member with a disability to say, are you aware of adaptive water skiing? And the whole thing went that I propelled interest with this gentleman to do adaptive water skiing. And then he subsequently meets a gentleman through physical therapy where um, we find out that he is a captain with my team Triumph, which is endurance sports. So that's being a captain and using running chairs so that the diverse ability athlete is the captain. And then there's a running team for these endurance events that they all do it together. And it's all led by the diverse ability athletes. So we also acquired his interest in water skiing. And so what happened a decade ago, folks, is that my friends, one being president of our club, the other being another board member of our club, took a situation where we were ready to take this gentleman water skiing during our water ski show. And they came over to me in how I sum it up that they were playing dumb and that they were like, Kurt, what's going on? Obviously, they're reacting to seeing a guy with water socks on, swimsuit, neoprene shirt, towel, goggles. I mean, he was more ready. Water skiing is 103 years old. So I tell the story like this gentleman was more ready than any water skier in the history of water skiing. So it's
Mhm.
pretty obvious that, he's a wheelchair user. And, and then we had our sit ski out. So they're putting this together. So obviously we're having a conversation about that. It ended up that they kept the no to it all, that he was not to ski that night. And that really was upsetting to me. And
Mhm.
it really created a realization that my friends did not have the same experiences that I've had, because
Mhm.
they clearly did not
Yep.
have the confidence I had that we were doing the right thing. They actually thought it was the wrong thing. And the one thing that was said by the one friend who's still in our club, still helping us with our annual adaptive water ski clinic, she says, well, if he skis, then everybody's got to ski.
I
Just let
like
that
that.
set in a little bit. So that
Yeah.
became the thing that overnight, Nick, and everybody out there, that, we created the Everybody Skis program, the Inclusion of Water Skiing campaign. And the Wisconsin Water Ski Federation took to it. And I reached out for them to help us with it. But then the president of the federation said, would you ever think about doing this for the federation? Which means we're now doing it at a state level. So now it was getting interesting. And coming into COVID, Nick and everybody, we more than sextupled the access to the sport of water skiing in 6 years, six times the access in 6 years,
Wow.
which for me was the most elation I've ever experienced in anything else in my life. And I have masters of ability to thank for that opportunity. So now I'm out here with COVID time and everybody's like rebooting and pivoting and all the stuff. Now
Mhm.
it's given me an opportunity to dovetail that into ministry, into inclusive recruiting and nonprofits, into accommodations of education, to look at our government to say, yeah, the disability services have it right. But how are we doing, whether it's park and rec, the highway department, all
Mhm.
of the work of government, are we doing all of it to the ideal formats of all of our citizens, especially our citizens with disabilities? And in the business community, I point out that the most concerning poor scorecard in terms of respect to people with disabilities is the business community. Now there's a lot of successes, a lot of shining examples out there,
Mhm.
but this is our biggest growth area, I believe. This is my opinion, is in the business community. Because I want to see C-level executives in businesses. I want to see more boards for businesses being people with disabilities, and
Same here.
more business owners to have more disability chambers of commerce. And I want professionals out there to really master this. And then when you say you work to live, like looking at you, Nick, or any of our viewers and listeners out there, what's living it to you? See, and that's what I go around and do. I ask everybody I'm with, how is that working for people with disabilities to join you in that? Or if you're a person with disabilities, how is the program doing attracting more people with disabilities? And so this has become my whole thing. I've created Ability Fest, Global Ability Fest to create these events where all this is demonstrated. And I equate it, my appetite for it, I equate to Epcot out of Orlando, Florida with Disney World, to say Epcot is the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. EPCOT, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. So I'm rebooting that whole shining example by Disney and saying, I want to deliver to the world the experimental prototype community of tomorrow and have it defined by people with differing abilities. That's my true mission in life right now.
I absolutely love that because one of my missions is to help others with disabilities, any kind, to figure out what they can do either for themselves or what they can do with assistive technologies. Because, I know a lot of people that have disabilities and they don't think that they can do a lot of things. It's like, if there's a will, there's a way, and it's up to people like me and you to figure out a way for them to do it. So I love your mission. I think it's really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And like I say, the gateway that I went through was provided by, what has become friends that are friends that happen to have a disability, but just to really deepen my understanding of the human experience and to really realize for the first 40 years of my life that, culture, custom, genetic memory, and our practices have really left me to temptation where I chose the wrong fork in the road. So I don't want to blame anybody in my life or society, things like that. But just like a lot of things that are like vices and things like that, and where ego can get in the way, you know, I can say that I practice the wrong side of the fence on all this topic. So to me, it's a little bit of a remediation, a little bit of reparation, and a way that I can feel more equity in my own life for myself personally. Because I just look back and I just really have to practice a lot of forgiveness, for myself, to forgive
Amen.
myself for what I have done, to really be disparaging to people with disabilities in my life, and just really being negligent, because that's really what opened up the abundance for my life in the last decade. Is I had this paradigm shift, and I think it took seeing my friends do what I learned not to do, but they obviously did not learn not to do that. Like even microaggression, the fact that it was this gentleman's business that he was going to go out there and ski, and they came over to me. See, I didn't realize, other than within the recent couple years of that moment, masters of ability, people with differing abilities, taught me the idea of microaggression. That I perpetuated microaggression for 4 decades of my life, and I didn't realize that they taught me that. So now through advocacy and just people letting me in their life, able to share with me things that I didn't learn, and they taught it to me. And now I'm able to see this right at a lakefront event for water skiing and to be like, oh my gosh, my friends just were totally in microaggression, coming to me to talk to me about this gentleman's business. And not only did they do that, even under my instruction to tell him that he was not going to ski, they never told him. My wife picked up on that and at least became the agent of courtesy and said, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to ski tonight. And no explanation. My wife didn't get into any explanation, but just at least put the apology out there. And my friends didn't even have the mindset to say that this guy deserved from them to know their decision. They were too uncomfortable to even do that.
Hmm.
So
And
what
I know,
happened?
like, for me, like, that's really common is people don't really love to talk to people with disabilities. And there's, many different things that we can think of as to why, but the fact is it happens. It happens to me almost daily when I go out. You know, if we're out in public, People are gonna walk up to whoever I'm with before they're gonna walk up to me if they don't know who I am, and it sucks.
Yeah, and Nick, I would say that I sit here very optimistic that we are at a point in time in the history of humankind to even look at to say 175 billion people have ever been on the planet. So part of my narrative is this is how amazing this turning point is that I believe the 8 billion of us on the planet are experiencing right now at the present time, is that these concerns that you just expressed for yourself, that 2 billion people on the planet can be assured, being stakeholders in this conversation, that the other 6 billion people will be responding in the next decade and 2 decades to this issue, thanks to the sacrifices that a lot of people have had, all the people that died from COVID and all of the stuff, that we live in a legacy now. And it's just amazing that just to say 8 billion people on the planet, and to just look at the growth, the human growth, the evolution of humankind that's happening at the present time, I think is real exciting on all fronts. But I really believe what's going to lead the excitement is people who don't identify with the disability, and people like myself. If I go back in time, I have a friend who said, Kurt, what it seemed to be telling me is we get to meet now, like on this podcast, on this show, you all get to meet Kurt Raskopf 2.0. If you had met me 15, 20 years ago, my commentary would not have had this flair. And again, masters of ability, people with differing abilities, get complete credit because I report that if I look at my 40-year trek, I'm 53 years old, and my 40-year trek being like people like you're talking about, Nick, not as much talking to you or giving you the attention deserved, just really worrying about, professional path, family planning, all these other things, the people you talk to in your ministry circles, your church circles, all this stuff, and not worrying that it's very exclusionary, against people with disabilities, to now saying, wow. And the thing that did it, Nick, was Americans with Disabilities did a project through the ADA Legacy Project, set forth a beautiful blog campaign that because of what I was doing, they created a blog with the Americans with Disabilities Act, that Americans with Disabilities reported how crucial that law is for their life. And
Hmm.
as much as that in itself is a great thing, their bigger purpose, everyone, was to say they more wanted to give the battle cry that the lives of people with disabilities are every day. And I'll tell you what, that really hit me at home and I'm at home, it really hit me in my heart, really stirred my belly. For my own introspection, I had to be honest that, yeah, I did the adaptive water skiing and some token things, but I really held on to my laurels with that small set of things that I did with people with disabilities. So they've got me to the point where now I say, Nick, what have you done today? What are you doing right now in this meeting with your show? What are we doing with, people with differing abilities? And what will we be doing later today with professionals with differing abilities? Because I not only want it to be thought of as an everyday thing, I want it to be throughout every day. I want it to be
Hmm.
that people like myself that can easily, like I had done, identified myself for the most part outside of the disability community, to say, like, even with dreaming, to just look at our dreams. When we have a dream, am I dreaming of doing things with someone who's deaf or hard of hearing? Am I doing stuff in my dreams with someone who's blind or visually impaired? Am I doing stuff in my dreams with someone with intellectual or developmental disabilities? Because when you get to that point where your subconscious is bringing inclusion and integration together, when it becomes reflexive, that's where we have become homogenous and we really practice equity, equality, and that, I point out the biblical thing, the sacred scripture thing with our Messiah, saying to disciples, what you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And if people are honest, they think of people with differing abilities in that comment, where that is not divinity. That is not, the divine experience. The divine experience is when you look at 8 billion people on the planet, is that we're equally yoked. We're all an equal part of the body across the planet. And when we can all get to that point where that becomes reality, and that in the business world, the employment world, and like in America or the USA, um, we've got a long ways to go to make, income generation a real deal for Americans with disabilities, because there's so many penalties, against Medicare and Medicaid if somebody goes after making income. And I don't think it's right. I don't think our laws are right. I think it, for the 80s and previous, for the past decades, where our Congress was, it was good for those decades. But we're celebrating our 35th anniversary at this point for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I feel that we've kind of went flatline, in this area. Now, there's a lot of triumphs. There's a lot of great legislation, a lot of great things that our advocates and disability services and our national networks have done. So I don't want to take anything away from those huge victories. But again, when you look at, like say 200 million people in the USA, I think 200 million people really have to do a check in and say, hey, come join me. Let's huddle up. Let's make the USA better for Americans with disabilities like we've never had before, and then keep inspiring around the world, like with Canada and Mexico and so on and so forth. I really come into change making groups and say, this is the lens I look through, is from the human functional assessment, because I look at it from a human resource standpoint, that if we're going to tackle the world's problems, we need everybody at the table. We need everybody to make our world a better place.
Yep. I agree with that. We're all in this together, and the more that we can get along and help each other out, the better everything is gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was in a session yesterday with the No More 9 to 5 Club. You can check them out at the No More 9 to 5 Club.org. But I was in one of their meetings, and they were unpacking the book Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, such a good book.
Yeah. So, in the way Napoleon Hill has a chapter on imagination. Otherwise, all this stuff about imagination, and so really, one of the commentaries was, it can start to, lean towards Martin Luther King Jr. with his whole thing, I have a dream, and really he prioritized focusing on racial equity. But I picked up on that disability advocates tend to lean on that type of equity and say the I have a dream thing. Now you can apply it to, functional consideration and say, people with differing abilities, that's where the dream can be. That we're in faith spaces together, we're in nonprofit groups together, we're in educational elements together, everything with all of our government divisions, all of business, the global business community revolutionizing in this way, continuing on all the triumphs that are out there, and then all the fun things. I say what's fun gets done. So to me, that is a powerful force, that when we're having our fun and we say with our group having fun, how are we doing having friends that have differing abilities joining our fun? And to me, that's really where it takes off. And I learned that through the sport of water skiing, the success we had on inclusion to water skiing.
That's awesome. And one thing that I talk about where I focus on people with different abilities is accept who you are. Like for me, I didn't accept my disability until I was 27, 28 years old. I'm at 33 now, so not that long ago. My whole life, basically, I tried to hide it, which you can't hide cerebral palsy. You just can't do it. But I did. I tried to hide it. Like, I tried to walk better and talk better. And all that did was make me walk worse and talk worse because I was focused on it. And as soon as I embraced who I was and I started to love myself, my whole world opened up. And that's what I want to, get out to the world is it doesn't matter who you are. Embrace who you are. Embrace your circumstances, regardless of how bad they are, and just live your life to the fullest. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. And so yeah, I'm on the community development side of it. One element is like respite care. So for all of our caregivers out there, I really see the dysfunction in our society. Again, culture, custom, genetic memory, that we just always dump, this space that we have an individual that needs a bridge, needs accommodation, and I don't even like to let it rest on a person with differing abilities has all the need. I really learned that I had the greater need than anybody with differing abilities, and it was more, what I learned about global public inclusive infrastructure, web content accessibility guidelines, universal design, assistive technology, adaptive equipment, all the things that I learned from independent living centers, aging and disability resource centers. I really went in and I got myself educated. And when I realized what was going on inside the disability community, I really was awestruck on how our way of life just really segregates that, just pushes that off. And when I get involved, people are like, Kurt, why are you involved? Do you have a wife with a disability? Do you have a disability? Does your daughter have a disability? People are trying to hunt for, why are you involved? I want to evolve to a point where this is an all hands on deck initiative where 100% of people are committed to make our communities and everything we do in our lives 100% accessible and enjoyable, and that everybody belongs. And we design it that way. We don't say, oh, it works for 75% of us. Good luck, other 25%. You'll figure it out. You got all your services. You'll figure it out. We all got to do this together. So with respite, I always figure for every person with a disability that has these functional interactions that really bring out the most in them and then allow them to come out and be the greatest part of our society so we benefit, I go by it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So when you look at that caregiver, who are the other two resourceful people functionally being in that respite type position to take a ton of weight off of that caregiver? Now there's respite programs, but I think part of our flaw is we have to now supplement and complement respite programs. We have to make the whole enchilada, our whole lifestyle as a community, that the entire way of living is respite for everyone, right?
Yep.
And to me, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. So just like I talked about that friend of mine who's a captain with my team Triumph, working with able-bodied athletes, and it all works as a unit. That's the way I look at it, is that people with differing abilities can come in and be our captain, take 3 people you know, into the, draw people who don't consider themselves with a disability, don't qualify for government benefits that way anyway, and to say 3 people are teamed up with the one. There's probably that one person that is the, you know, customary caregiver, but that
Yep.
customary caregiver needs a couple people from the community also assigned, to help out, because like
Hmm.
the 24-hour day, if you have 3 people, you can split it up into 8-hour intervals, which we know, in the scope of tasks and work, that's more reasonable than having somebody who's assigned to another person for 24 hours a day, every day, and then lucky to have occasional respite. You know, there's these things that I learned at that being brought in being a part of the inner circle kind of thing, and really getting the ripe, raw truth. And there's a documentary film called Interdependence by J Dog Productions here in Wisconsin. And there's a handful of people who have become friends through my getting involved. It's just really rich to me to hear their examples and how they're not afraid to talk about systemic oppression, to look at how independent living works and how work life works and transportation and all of it, and that it's functionally in conflict with each other. That when you look
Mhm.
at deploying that to a person, and a person is supposed to participate in these separate systems and have it come together in a functionally sensible way, the system does not basically allow it. Like, it's
No,
humanly
it doesn't.
impossible for any human to work with a system combination like that. If you just look at one system alone in that lane, it's like it looks like we got it taken care of. But then they
Mhm.
point out in interdependence how the work considerations with the health considerations, with the transportation limitations and all the stuff, there's just like no
Yep.
way for a person to do that. And nobody's looking at it to make it a homogenous, frictionless and seamless exchange between all the systems that need to come together to wrap around and make it humanly feasible, that they can really receive the benefits that make sense. And again, it's filling the gap between them and the rest of us that have not
Yep.
had the ability to make our activities make sense for people with disabilities. So we lose out because we're really trying to do everything with 75% of our population, if we're
Mhm.
honest. So why
Yep.
not do it with 100% of our population? We're going to move everything we want to see for our neighborhoods, our cities, villages, towns, our states, our regions, our country, our world. If we get everybody at the table, it's going to be better for everybody.
Mhm. Yes, it will be. I just want to talk about a couple of things from my perspective. It's like I've learned more about disabilities, disability community, and all that, and all the resources out there, all the resources that should be out there that aren't out there. I've learned more about that in the last year than I did my whole, 32 years before living with one. Because it's not something that's like talked about. It's not something that is readily available like most things in life. So I'm really looking forward to, being more a part of what you do and the other people that I have in my community now, because there's a big change happening. You are correct, and it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to help in any way that I can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, my time and with the stories I'm telling, I was vice chair of the Wisconsin Council on Physical Disabilities. And um, the timing of my entering there is that the Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing had just completed their emergency preparedness toolkit. So then they came as a guest to a council meeting when I just entered the council. And so I'm learning about, and I had been an EMT for 10 years. So this is right in my wheelhouse. But it was just amazing to me to hear that when there's a disaster, mass casualty incident, where there's just a mob of people responding to an emergency, and then you're deaf or hard of hearing, and to look at that everything's on sirens and announcements like, go to the basement, or whatever is shouted out, that when you're deaf or hard of hearing, everybody around you knows what to do because they heard the instructions. And then to think of that person who's deaf or hard of hearing, you're already scared. Like, if you have hearing, you're already scared hearing the instruction you're supposed to do. And then imagine how exponentially more scary it is when you're looking around and nobody communicated to you, you know, what are you to do? And you're way behind the pack because you're having to pick up on visual cues and, a roundabout way to find out what you're going to decide to do. And then, so in these preparedness toolkits, they have these placards that in emergencies, the things that you tend to communicate, this two-sided, um, you know, card guide, can allow you to point and help communicate to people who are deaf or hearing. And then plus in their kit, they can go up to somebody and there can be some interaction because you're using, a cheat sheet basically, and using at least two sides of what possibly could be communicated to give some guidance to the person. And this just happened 8 years ago,
Wow.
and then to look what's going on there. So now I was involved helping it be for people with physical disabilities. And then it went to the governor's committee for people with disabilities, and through the health and human services it became an emergency preparedness toolkit for all people with disabilities. And
Mhm.
so really this pretty much got to be in a nice place like right before COVID, but that's public health. That's a little different scenario when you're talking about something like COVID. It's
Mm.
not the same type of preparation or response. But at least that all got in play before that disruption, that the project is in a good place. And,
Mhm.
and I just really find that it was very insightful to look at life, that to me, if you can make it work in an emergency, you know, all that type of insight helps you really for everyday life as well.
Yep, it does. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, Kurt, I love what you do, and please tell the audience how they can support you and what you do.
Well, I would say if you're out there being somebody who is like, me in my 30s or previous, where it seems like I may have given you a notion and you want to respond to the notion from this conversation, find out, like, make yourself available like I did. And to me the question is about how to help me, but really, like I say, my vision is that we're going to go out together, and we're going to help maximize the next decade of progress and integration from the perspective of people with disabilities. And the more that we mitigate that gap, because I say segregation is alive and well, that there's a lot of shining examples. We don't want to take anything away. And the other side, we want to tap from that. So my number is 33. When you see those shining examples, learn from it, and that we're all going to grow all of that by 3,300%, 33 times magnification of all these shining examples. So take the lead from these people that have been in victory. And in terms of what I do, I also do podcasting. So, so basically, with what you're doing with Nick here, if there's more things in the media space, television, radio, whatever, you definitely can reach out to me. If you do want to call and text me, my phone number is 262-372-1754. And you can also email me, Kurt, KURT, at spiritofthegame.org. And I'm also an ambassador with Project Yerhart, combating veteran suicide, which when I served on the board for the Madison, Wisconsin Spinal Cord Injuries Group, I learned a lot about how they have peer specialists and, peer support programs. And those people providing the peer support are trained in responding to possibilities of suicide ideation and things like that. So there's all these very real things that I just believe what goes around comes around. The
Yeah.
karma and fate and all this stuff. But yeah, if you want to be directly involved with what I'm doing, like in the field of adaptive sports and rec, I specialize in water skiing, but I was a part of an adaptive sports and rec expo, which had over 50 renditions of sports and rec. So I have an appetite for that whole realm. And if you want to be involved in shaping Ability Fest, just reach out to me. You can participate in all my social medias, just Google me, so on and so forth. Just pick a thing and let's go. Every little bit you do is a big deal.
It is, it really is. And I gotta ask you, so my slogan is abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a sports team where sometimes we can watch our favorite sports team and we can feel that, the team in some sense really just beat themselves. They didn't show up, to really play that game to the best of their abilities. So I really do believe, again, learning from people with different abilities, I really looked at myself personally and really realized how I can expand my own capabilities. So yeah, infinite abilities, the idea, like we talked about Napoleon Hill, so forth, what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So we can achieve what our minds can conceive and believe. And there's another mantra out there, know what you believe and believe in what you know. So yeah, definitely, like with water skiing, show skiing, the mindset is such a big deal. So definitely, there's also power in numbers. The idea to expand your own abilities through other people. So to me, that's what it amounts to. We don't know our own capacity, until we lean on others. And yesterday in the No More 9 to 5 club, they talked about, do we give ourselves 30 minutes to meditate, contemplate, make our plans, to just really assess and really, self-care and self-attention, and really think it through, and really open up the possibilities from that moment on until you do it again the next day. Yeah, I really do believe that, you know, we can look at our abilities as infinite. Because I know as a 53-year-old, I'm surprised that, kind of what I'm growing into doing. And, there's something like some people say your heavenly father does not give you challenges that are beyond your capacity. So it feels like you've got a lot on your shoulders. It's because there's higher power there that is saying you can do it. So it's up to you to believe you can do it too. And your point, Nick, I love it. It's infinite.
Thank you. And thank you for being on the show. This was really incredible. And I'm about 100% sure that you'll be on the show again.
That's good. This is what
Oh,
keeps me
yeah.
coming back. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.